What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday was April Fool's Day, and yeah, there were a lot of news articles that went up that were fairly questionable. We'll talk about that because there were some pretty good ones in there, and there were some ones that got a little out of control with what happened afterwards. Also, Animal Crossing continues to move along pretty well in the sales charts at record pacing, I would say right now. So we're going to talk a bit about how that's going, and it does indeed look like E3 time is going to be a bit strange. We already know E3 is not taking place as it normally would, a digital event of some kind, but it also looks like some companies will be possibly even skipping that time period, with one announcing, and it's a pretty big one, that they won't even be there at that time. As always, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we're going to start today with Animal Crossing, but something I didn't even really think too much about, but now I see a lot of possibilities here, and that's the idea of being able to completely rearrange your island through like the terraforming that you can do, where you can basically stack up bits of land and remove them down to water. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do to where you can eventually just blank slate your island, it seems, and then do what you want with it. In fact, if you see this Reddit post here, it looks like someone decided to take their island and pretty much make or recreate the Link to the Past map. How awesome is that? It is so cool. They have images of it here, uploaded several of them. It looks like, yeah, that would take quite a while to do, but just the details and everything about this is amazing because it does make me think a bit more about the possibilities going forward for what other maps could be created with what's basically an editing mode for your island. I'm sure there's gonna be some really cool stuff. What I would like to see is if there was ever a mode where you can go to, like, because, I mean, yes, you could visit their island, but what if you could download people's templates and go to, like, their island even when they're not around, and it's just, like, a blank thing you could check out stuff that's made? It'd be pretty cool. Oh, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Borderlands 3. There is a report that's out right now, which I'm going to talk about on the second channel, so make sure you check that out later on today. But there was a bit of information here that surprised me, and I think it's worth going over very briefly because it does give us the look into games, the budget that these games kind of accrue, and going into the next generation. Borderlands 3 was put on blast yesterday. A lot of that had to do with Gearbox, their employees not getting the bonuses that they were promised originally to get the game done and shipped with the kind of quality and content that was in that game. But in that report, it appears that Borderlands 3 and the DLC cost upwards of $140 million to create. That is like mind-blowing that we are to that point with some of these games. Apparently, that's one of the reasons some of the bonuses are in flux right now, but like, why? Why is this game $140 million to make overall? That just seems insane, but it makes you wonder, going into next generation, are these budgets going to get even higher, or is this just mismanagement all over the place? I kind of feel like because it's going from like 2K and Gearbox and developers, and they're probably all over the place with the idea. They changed engines, Unreal Engine 3 to 4. I almost feel like there was mismanagement in there by quite a bit, but it also, again, makes you wonder if going into next generation, are those budgets going to continue to balloon, because there will be a breaking point sometime when it comes to all of this with how much money you can generate and how much money it costs just to make the thing. Oh, and we did find out that Trails of Cold Steel 4 is indeed coming west this year. Now, this came out in 2018 in Japan, and it's kind of been sitting there for a bit, but it looks like Falcom is now bringing it west. And it's not just going to the PlayStation 4. Now, this year, it will be a PlayStation 4 timed exclusive localization thing. Maybe they just have so many resources to get it here, they got to focus on kind of like one system at a time. But it will also be going to PC and the Switch in 2021, which does show Falcom's approach now, as they don't have the Vita anymore. It does look like they are starting to attach completely to the Switch, as Trails of Cold Steel 3 is also heading to it. Don't really know much about 1 and 2. It is strange for them to bring 3 and 4 to the Switch, but not 1 and 2. However, they might just say, hey, you know what, we're going to push forward. And I mean, that's good at least for Nintendo Switch owners who wanted the series there. It looks like that's going to be its new home. But PlayStation 4 is coming up first, so look for that sometime 2020. And if you want to check out more, Game Informer had a very large, detailed article all about it and what's going on there. I'll leave a link for that in the sources below for you. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We'll start with these April April Fool's jokes, the unbelievable, almost at times, news articles, stuff that went up. It was all over the place. And for the most part, April Fool's is, of course, supposed to be good fun. It's like, oh, okay, you got me with that joke. But recently, especially with games, we get some I would say hype announcements, and then we find out that it's just false and they were just messing around, right? It does get annoying. I could see why people get frustrated on April 1st nowadays. But let's talk about some of the jokes, and maybe they're jokes, maybe they're trying to see if this is viable, and maybe they can convince some companies that have these IPs that, hey, it's a good idea. Look at the response we got before we said April Fools. So, for example, would you like to see another Crysis game, or a remaster, or even kind of like Borderlands remake of the original Crysis? Yeah, I mean, that would be cool, right? Well, the Crysis website, just Crysis.com, updated, and it almost looked like that was going to be happening, teasing something to do with Crysis. Although there's one problem. If you look in the code for the website page itself, it does say April Fools. Oh, okay, great. All right, so, well, I guess we're not getting that. What about if FDG, the company, developer that did Monster Boy, which is an amazing looking game, what if they took like Donald Duck and did something with Quackshot? They even put these images up here. They announced it. I was getting excited, right? This looked amazing. Come to find out, this was an original pitch they had for Disney, so they decided to turn it into an April Fool's joke. Hey, maybe they have this idea that they show it to us and we all wanted it, which, by the way, that tweet blew up big time. And Disney has said that they are interested in having other companies make games for them and they would like to see pitches. Hey, Disney, I mean, that looks amazing. Go do that. But then things get a little crazy, maybe going a little too far, maybe hitting a nerve when you shouldn't have. For example, Flipnote Studio. It's something that went away in 2018. People remember this very well on like the DSi, and I remember it on the DSi a bit, but definitely on the 3DS because they had Flipnote Studio 3D. That went away in 2018. It was discontinued. People weren't too happy about that, but I mean, let's face it, the 3DS is pretty much done at this point, right? Everyone's moving to the Switch and it's doing really well. And so yes, the 3DS is forgotten about, but the idea of Flipnote Studio maybe coming to the Switch seemed to get people really, really excited online. And then we start seeing, leading up to April 1st, several screenshots leaking out. And I saw this, I did. People were telling me about this, and I was looking at it, and I started to kind of look into it, and I couldn't figure out where these images were exactly coming from. No one really seemed to know, other than, okay, it's in some Discord rooms out there. That was the big thing, right? And I said, all right, well, maybe I'll see if I can figure something out. And then images started leaking out that appeared to show Nintendo employees drawing out E3 2020 plans with things like Metroid and Pikmin, and I said, that's a little strange. I don't know about that one. Come to find out, it was indeed an April Fool's Day joke. Okay, fine. That didn't turn out so well for the people behind it, as it looked like the person revealed it on Twitter and then caught a whole bunch of flack from people online about this, to the point where they had to make their Twitter profile private. Now, I guess on one hand, yes, you upset an angry mob, I get it. But on the other hand, your joke was so good, it had people believing it so much that they got that angry. So I guess, sure, it was a good April Fool's joke. It probably didn't land very well after that, right? But the one that annoyed me the most was Platinum Games. This better be like an April Fool's joke on an April Fool's joke, right? Like, they better be like doing some weird Inception stuff here, because they announced that their fourth announcement that they said is very platinum, and it's going to be this big thing, was an arcade machine. Like, they put out a video and everyone looked at that and said, what? And it's obvious that it's a joke, the way it's titled, the way it's framed, and it's like $17,000 or whatever at the end. It's odd that Platinum would do this, because, like, why? Well, you had so many things and they hyped it up, and it could have been anything else and people would have been excited about it. And they even updated their website to basically show that it's an April Fool. It says like movie. So my big hope is that this is just them trolling us. Like I said, they probably would, right? I said, okay, they might troll us on April 1st. That's April Fool's Day. Okay, sure. But at this time, we haven't really heard much else, and I'm hoping that they come back in a day or two and say, oh, that was just a joke, guys. Here's the real announcement. It's Okami 2. It's something with Beautiful Joe. There's all kinds of stuff they could maybe do, but we'll see. Hey, maybe there's a new Metal Gear Rising 2, right? That'd be cool. I don't know. It's going to be a real shame if this was the last of the Platinum 4 that's not even a real announcement. They should have just done Platinum 3. They literally planned out their April Fool's Day prank like weeks ago, months ago. I don't know about that one. We'll see, but this could also just be me hoping that there really is a 4th announcement. But all in all, April Fool's Day was, it wasn't that good. I mean, it is always fun to see some crazy elaborate stuff put out there, but like, maybe it's just what's going on in the world right now. A lot of people just weren't feeling it or just into it. I don't know. It was just brought a lot of disappointment this year. Previous years, at times, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty funny. That's a good one. It's just a lot of people just annoyed this year. So it's April Fool's Day, I guess, and that's just what we got. A lot of annoyed stuff, but possibly some potential. I mean, Quackshot by FDG, that'd be really, really neat. I would like to see that. A Crysis remaster, that'd be cool as well. And maybe Platinum isn't really gonna make an arcade machine, but that's just all a lot of hopeful stuff here, and we'll see. But April Fool's Day 2020, Next up, let's talk about Animal Crossing and the sales that it continues to have in Japan. Of course, these are the Famitsu sales charts, and I was curious how Animal Crossing would do into its 2nd week. Generally, that is, of course, when games drop off massively, because most people bought it day 1 who want it, but a lot of times games will also have at least somewhat of a tail when it comes to sales. So let's go to the top 10 here, and you can see, yes, Animal Crossing at the top, still getting quite a few sales. It did drop 61% though, down to 727,791 units. That's still very, very good. One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, 75,998 on the PlayStation 4, and then we had it on the Switch right below that, 61,571. It is interesting that despite the Switch outselling the PS4 by a pretty good amount now in Japan, a lot of the third-party games like One Piece, for example, do still sell a bit better on the PlayStation 4, but I guess Animal Crossing could have taken away some of those sales on the Switch. Pokemon Sword and Shield at 4, then we have Ring Fit Adventure at 5, which still struggles to remain in stock, but it did have a bit of a boost there. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 6, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon at 7, Neo 2 at 8, Smash Bros. Ultimate at 9, and then we had Minecraft at 10. Moving over to the hardware, the Switch was at the top, 282,561 units, moving it above 13 million systems lifetime in Japan, which is insane already. The Switch Lite had a majority of that by quite a bit, 230,671 Switch Lites. The regular Switch itself is becoming very, very hard to find right now, and that does include in Japan, just 51,890 of those sold when compared to the Switch Lite. That's not that many. The PlayStation 4, 10,820, 3DS 940, and then the Xbox One is continuing to sell actually all right at 310. So physically in Japan, yes, Animal Crossing is a sales beast, crossing over 2.6 million units, and it does make me wonder what its overall sales total, because if you see this in Japan, generally it's more in the US, and then other parts of Europe get added in as well around the world, and it does come up to, I think right now, 12, 13 million, maybe more than that. Maybe this thing's already a 15 million unit seller, which would be ridiculous, because that could end up making Animal Crossing Nintendo's biggest franchise right now. Wouldn't that be crazy? If you think of Mario, you think of Zelda, you think of Smash Bros, right? All these other games, but Animal Crossing might end up being their best seller, even over Pokemon. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? But we'll see. Again, Nintendo's investors briefing and the numbers they will put out are at the beginning of May, I believe. We'll find out some hard numbers then overall. But right now, I mean, 2.6 million here with digital, you're probably figuring right now somewhere around 3.5 million just in Japan, which is insane. In our last bit of news, talk about Bethesda and E3. Turns out they're not going to be doing anything around that time period. We don't really know what E3 is going to be this year. I don't think they've figured that out. Some kind of digital event, but all of these companies can do their own digital events. So like, why do they need E3 to help them? I don't know. Anyway, this is Pete Hines who tweeted this out saying, given the many challenges we're facing due to the pandemic, we will not host a digital showcase in June. We have lots of exciting things to share about our games and look forward to telling you more in the coming months. So yes, you'll probably see Twitter directs, if you want to say, a lot from a lot of different companies this year going up to E3. I'm sure Bethesda will tweet out things like, people are wondering, when is Doom Eternal coming out for the Switch? That'll probably just be a tweet. Like they'll just put it out there and say, oh, it's coming out in May or something, and that'll be that, right? And then we'll roll up to release, it'll come out, and people will most likely buy it on the Switch. But that's probably the plan there. Several different announcements throughout on Twitter, and that could just make a very scattered E3 overall. One of the things I like about E3 most years is that everything's condensed into 1 week, so we know when we're supposed to be paying attention for a lot of stuff or scheduling or setting things up. It's going to be all over the place. I think May through the end of June could be this large, like 2-month window of just announcements all over the place, falling from the sky, just all kinds of crazy stuff happening, which could be kind of tough to track, I think at times, or at least plan for them. But we'll see. I mean, a Nintendo Direct will probably happen, right? There'll probably be a state of play. Microsoft, I'm sure, will do one big event, but it comes down to those third parties and where they can fit in. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from Cameron saying, why is this irrelevant company trying so hard to mess up Nintendo? Is it because they know nobody cares about them and that their company is not as successful as Nintendo with the Switch? You know, the only time people really talk about Game Vice is when they also talk about Nintendo because Game Vice is suing Nintendo. Maybe that's like their one shot at actual marketing is to spend the money to go to court or to sue Nintendo so that they're in the news, because that's the only time I see Do you see Game Vice in the news for like, oh, their new attachments for the iPad? I don't, at least nowhere I've seen. So maybe that really is the strategy, but it will end up being a pretty expensive strategy if they continue to do this over and over again, because it's not free to file court documents and sue a company. It does cost money, and Nintendo, I don't think it's about to settle. They'll drag this thing out and they'll take Game Vice with them if they have to. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the April Fool's jokes. They're all over the place yesterday. Was there anyone that was like your favorite that actually made you like laugh a bit, or was there one that just really annoyed you and you were just so frustrated you just were not happy with April Fool's Day yesterday? Also, what do you think about E3 time? Is it just going to be a bunch of Twitter announcements, or do you think Square will do their own event, and then you'll see then you'll see Nintendo and you'll see EA do one, and Microsoft? Let me know how you think that week's going to go down. And then also, these Animal Crossing sales are pretty ridiculous, but what do you think that number is going to be when Nintendo shows up to talk to investors? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.